Good morning, and thank you so much for coming. I'm really delighted to be here to kick off day 2 of DigiMarcom Los Angeles 2022. And I am going to get us started with my favorite topic, which is integrating direct mail into your digital marketing strategy. Some of you might say, well, we're going to explore that a little bit more in a moment. So first, just a bit about me, this giant picture of my face. I am the VP of Customer Success at Lob, and my team is responsible for enabling our customers to automate, measure, and maximize their direct mail capabilities. So I know you can all read on your own. So before we get into our agenda, I know we're all marketers in this room and very data-driven, so I'm going to do a quick survey, brief 3-question survey. By a show of hands, how many of you have a direct mail program today? Okay. By a show of hands, how many of you are direct mail curious? Okay, good. That's good. That's great. I love the curiosity, please. And then, all right, last, this is the real question here. By a show of hands, how many of you have a mailbox? All right. Phew. That's what I expected. I love it when you get the answer you expect. So today we're going to talk about this brave new world of omnichannel marketing, which is a world you probably all live in very, very well, very comfortably. We are going to talk about how you can integrate automated direct mail into that omnichannel strategy. And then I will share an example of how we at Lob are using an omnichannel strategy today that we just launched in a campaign. So let us start by talking about this brave new world of omnichannel marketing. We live in a time where we move fluidly between digital and real life. And as a result, we expect a seamless experience, whether we are experiencing a brand online, on our phones, shopping in a store, sometimes both at the same time. Hello, TJ Maxx and Home Goods Shopper right here. And we want to see that experience is consistent no matter where we are experiencing the brand. That means we can no longer dismiss direct mail as one of those touch points in that experience. It's how we build connections and relationships, because today, I don't know about you, but I am saturated with digital content. And where I am not saturated is when I walk from my front door to my mailbox and pick up my mail and spend that time that, 2 to 3 minutes walking back. It's always a longer walk back because I'm looking at my mail as I'm walking back and interacting with every single mail piece. So this is why we believe so powerfully that direct mail is such an important part of your omnichannel strategy and where you really make connections with your customers. So as the digital world took off, many marketers and many of you among them probably decided to really focus on digital. It's a really great strategy. It makes a lot of sense. It's very measurable. It's easy to iterate and to test and learn. But at the same time, direct mail has not gone away. It is alive and well. And because of automation, it's even better than before. Direct mail has tremendous capability to convert prospects and customers that if you are operating a digital strategy without direct mail, you could be missing out on a really important channel that will drive results for you. And with the power of automation, you can add direct mail and have it fully integrated into all of your other digital marketing capabilities. So why is that? Well, for direct mail, response rates are really high. People are more likely, I'm going to read off of this because there are some stats in here and I don't want to mix them up. So forgive me if it's a little awkward. People are very, very likely to respond to direct mail. Most people, like I said, my journey from my mailbox to my front door is that I am opening my mail, I am reading my mail, and it definitely leads to higher response rates because let's face it, I don't open and read every email. Like oftentimes I just bulk delete them. I filter by type and then I delete all of them and sometimes unsubscribe. So here's a stat for you. Data Axle, which is a market research firm, says that 58% of consumers open and read promotional mailers. And that means that the odds of a good amount of responses to your campaigns are already spoken for. You got 58% of people opening and reading the mail. You pair that with an average response rate of 9% for your house list and 5% for your prospect list. That's 3 times higher than all digital channels combined. So direct mail has already established itself just on the outset that it's a front runner. Okay, reason number 2, tangible is memorable. We just talked about the, endless sea of scrolling, right? And email and being inundated with images and content digitally. Direct mail doesn't have that same interaction experience, right? Our mailboxes are not as cluttered, and you need to actually touch things to get through them. So it's almost in a way impossible to ignore. You're reaching people at home. This is where they're making big decisions, especially big purchase decisions, when they're in the comfort of their home in a safe place with the network of people they trust the most, their family and their friends. When you are reaching a customer at home, you are reaching them in the midst of all of their other research that they're doing for major purchases, like online on their phones or their computers. And you're adding this valuable touch point that is really going to stand out to them through their mailbox. And then finally, I was talking about this with Jessica just a moment ago about how do you reach different kinds of audiences. Direct mail appeals to audiences that are not online, right? And the ones that are online. Here's why. Direct mail really appeals to older audiences. They are not as engaged typically as younger audiences online, and it's also a lifelong habit of checking the mailbox. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I cannot walk by my mailbox without checking it. It is like a compulsion. So for me, it's like an ingrained habit from my entire life when I got my very first own mailbox. And then for younger audiences who are experiencing a lot of digital fatigue, having this physical touch point that stands out from the rest of the noise is really valuable, and it proves to be very appealing to millennials. In fact, the Postal Service, which is one of Lob's partners, has a study that says 84% of millennials will take the time to check their mail, and 64% of them prefer scanning physical mail over digital mail. So in summary, let's look at some stats. Direct mail is additive to your digital campaigns. It lives in your house. This is a statistic that I love, on average 17 days. So who among us has not gotten like a Wayfair mailer? Wayfair is one of our customers, full disclosure, or a mailer from a credit card company or a bank with an offer that you haven't just saved because you're going to think about using it in the near future. So that piece of mail has durability in your home where every single day you are walking by it numerous times and re-engaging with the content. And we've also seen in the last year that investment in automated direct mail has increased 52%. So we know that the results are there, the investment is there, and we think this is a great opportunity for you to consider using direct mail. I'm going to move on. Now that we have talked about the whys, let's start talking about the hows. So how do you start using direct mail? A lot has changed in the world of direct mail. It's no longer a case where you need to place an order 6 or 8 weeks in advance with a printer and have them run a run of 10,000, a million, 2 million, 5 million postcards, all with the same message that all need to drop on the same day, that just spray and pray. Those days are over. With automation for direct mail, you can start to really think about direct mail the same way that you think about email. So I think the easiest way to start is to look at the KPI vocabulary, right? Like we all want to talk about how we're being measured. How do you measure results? So the KPIs are familiar between direct mail and email, for example. So I'm just going to highlight a few of them. With automation software like Lob, direct mail, you can do a lot of things with direct mail that you can do just the same with email. For example, you can choose the exact date that you want a piece of mail to land in someone's hands, just like email. You can A/B test different images and text, just like email. And you can track conversion rates, just like email. So those friction points or barriers to entry that you might have experienced in the past really are obviated with the use of an automation solution that is built into your tech stack. This means that you, as a marketer, can point directly and cleanly attribute the results of this mailer for that campaign. All right, so at this point, I'm hopeful that we're getting a little bit of direct mail curious? All right, no takers. All right, well, I'm going to keep going anyway because you're a captive audience. So let's talk about how you make it happen. There's not going to be any surprises here. You all know how this works, right? But the number one, you build your database of addresses, right? So with the new hybrid workforce, it's very, you need to look for both work and home addresses. Work addresses are easy to get through Zoom Info and other services. Home addresses definitely take a little bit more elbow grease. And I'm going to give you some ideas to steal in the next couple of slides. And here comes your first one. Our marketing team has added a call to action at the bottom of all of our engagements with our digital engagements with our customers. To want to see Lob in action? Click here. And in that engagement, the prospect goes to a landing page, enters in their home email address, and we send them a personalized postcard. So the idea to steal here is invite your prospects and customers to share more information with you. Next, number two, whoops. How am I doing with the two different slide sets here? You want to build your buyer journeys, right? And there's no shortcutting this. This takes research, but this is no different from what you would be doing with any other of your digital channels. So I'm going to give you the example of Third Love. Is that what's up there? It's hard to see. Yep, Third Love, great. Third Love is an online retailer of intimate apparel. They launched a direct mail campaign to target customers who had unsubscribed from email. Their hypothesis was that customers still wanted to get offers and promotions from Third Love, but they just didn't want to get them in email. And they were right. They told us that their direct mail campaign resulted in a higher response rate than emails. And I thought this was a great example because we all know, we've talked about the amount of noise in the digital realm, how hard it is to do email marketing. So direct mail really proved out to be like a great additive channel for Third Love. The idea to steal here is use direct mail to keep unemailable customers and leads from going stagnant. All right, number three, personalize. Just like email, you can, with direct mail automation, you can personalize the message that you send to your customers and prospects. Here's an example from ThredUp. Full disclosure, I'm a customer of ThredUp. Love the product. So they sell secondhand clothing online. It's like a consignment store. And what they wanted to do was encourage repeat buyers to buy again. So they did some research on what their customers had previously purchased, created a customized postcard with products that were similar to purchases that the customers had made before, and then featured images on those mailers that aligned with the customer's taste and sent them an offer to buy. And this one, apparently somebody really likes yellow. That would not have come to my house, I must say. Mine would be purely monochromatic. But this approach worked. ThredUp really nailed it. They increased their repeat purchases by 20%. And the idea to steal here is that it's absolutely worth it to take time to understand your customers so that you can send them the right offer that is super relevant to them in your direct mail piece. Number four, you want to prove the value of direct mail marketing. So just like you would use a UTM parameter in an email, you want a unique identifier for each of your direct mail pieces. We are big fans of QR codes and pearls. And with these capabilities, we are able to know who has come to our website, whether or not they have filled out any forms or completed any calls to action. So it's a very powerful way to link up your offline and online channels so that it all comes together of a piece for your omnichannel strategy. Okay, so let's recap. You've built your list, you know your customer, you've personalized accordingly, and you know how you're going to track what the customer does. So now you need to pick a KPI that you're going to measure. And I love the suggestions on this slide. Specifically, I'm really fond of, and I find many of our customers, especially in the marketing space, are looking at response rate and conversion rate and cost per acquisition and return on investment. So those three tend to be the metrics that I hear the most from our marketers. We do work with transactional mailers who have a different set of KPIs that they are interested in. We have seen that for one customer I work with directly is a large household brand, and multinational corporation. And their biggest revelation has always been around CPIA, so cost per incremental ad, for their cross-sell services. And they find that they are able to tie the results of not just the mailer and the messaging and the call to action, but also the form factor to whether or not the customer converts, and then they impute the cost for ads based on that, based on the cost to mail them and the conversion rate. Super interesting. You can get super, super geeky on this stuff. So that is a big component of success for your direct mail campaigns. The last piece is to test and optimize. You can start testing even with your very first mail campaign, and I encourage this because this is where you really find out where your openings are to connect with your customers through this channel, and continue to refine them. And with automation, you can do that fairly regularly and with relative ease compared to like the old days when you had to do giant mail runs to make it at all cost effective. Once you've launched your initial campaign, figure out what you're going to test, and then look at different components as you go. I'll share an example of a customer we've been working with. Our solutions team was able to identify 125 different permutations of a single postcard based on swapping out 5 headlines, 5 subheads, 5 background images, and using the back as a control. So the ability to test is as robust as you would use in any other digital channel. We've also found customers of ours test some really exciting things that I think are just very, very modern, for lack of a better word, in the way they're thinking about their mail campaigns. Specifically for like retargeting and cross-sell campaigns, one of our customers is using first-party data to know which channel the target of the recipient of the direct mail piece last purchased in. So they have many channels that you can buy in: retail stores, online, the app that they have, and a call center is another channel that they have. So depending upon where the customer last purchased, that is the call to action parameter that they put on the direct mail piece. So they're driving the customer to the channel that they know has been successful for conversion in the past. I also like to see maps for brands that have retail stores. You can integrate a map API and have the location of the nearest store printed as a map on the mailer so that you're directing the customer to the store that is closest to them. I talked so much, my computer went to sleep. Here we go. All right. So making it all happen, right? That's a lot of stuff that we just talked about. It's really important to use an automation product. That is what unlocks all of the flexibility, capability, and measurement capability. The benefits of automation really basically take advantage of every step of the workflow that you've already built and enable you to do the same kind of analysis and attribution that you would do on advertisements through any other channel. And you have the ability to measure the behavior. And these are just some of the examples of measurable data elements that we offer through our platform: deliverability, when the mail piece arrived in the home, as well as geographic distribution. I want to show you our marketing tech stack. This was put together by our VP of Demand Generation, Julie Ginn, who is, by the way, like an absolute rock star, and really was a revelation to me as someone who's not directly in marketing every single day, but working with marketers, right? We really do eat our own dog food. We have about 40 different applications in our marketing tech stack. And for us, we've integrated Lob into our Marketo and Salesforce instances. This works well for us because we like to trigger mail based on what customers do on our website. So that integration enables us to trigger mail rather than sending timed campaigns, and that is what we prefer to do. So for you all who have really robust tech stacks, and I've seen some that are even more complex than this and have like third-party agencies and first-party data and all sorts of complex different arrangements, Lob is a great solution because it can be integrated into all of this. And if you don't have the resources to do that integration, and you first need to prove out that this is something worthwhile, you don't need to do it. You can use Lob as a standalone tool to begin sending direct mail. All right, I'm going to close with an example. Is everybody still doing okay here? Hanging on? Okay, great, love it. So this example, I wish I had come up with this, but I am not the creative type and there's no way I could, but I swear I lived this. This is our Change the Channel to Lob campaign. We just launched it last month. And the concept is that the 1980s were really great for a lot of things, like not the least with my hair, but not so great for direct mail. So I can say there's not a lot of children of the 80s in this room, so I will pause with the 80s jokes. But it's really creative, and we want it to go really big. And we have built an entire ecosystem of communication around this concept. On the digital side, we have personalized URLs, email, and LinkedIn ads, because that's where buyers for our platform are hanging out and spending time. And in real life, we have two physical touch points. We have a postcard that obviously is customized, and then we also send out a customized Rubik's Cube with a handwritten note, driving folks back to our Change the Channel microsite to learn more. I'm not going to walk through the next slide. Wait, do I have one more? Well, I did have one more, but that's totally fine. This slide is just basically an example of the schematic of how we are driving the customers through the journey from our campaign to working with a member of our sales team, right? So again, what this is meant to illustrate for you is that this is nothing really new. It's an addition of high value to work you're already doing, workflows that already exist, and enabling you to unlock more return on investment through yet another channel. So in summary, integrating direct mail into your digital strategy will improve your outcomes. You can test, optimize, and track and measure your KPIs just like you will with other digital channels. And technology is the key to your success. On that note, I would love to open up for some questions and for moving the cube around.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great presentation. Thank you. What I thought, I mean, I don't know what the audience thinks, but I thought what was really cool about that, something we talk about at my Zoom clients all the time, about I loved how you mapped out the experience and the touch points. Like, what do you want to say to them next?
Right.
And then based on what they do, what do you want to say to them then? And like, I think that's a really great thing to think about in terms of that optimizing that experience, right? Because remember yesterday, a couple of speakers were talking about don't sell people shit. Don't just put your products out there. Like help them buy, help them solve a problem. And you kind of just laid out a schematic framework to help people do that, right?
Right.
Not just the idea of the technology that makes the workflow more automated and efficient, but like I think the real money shot right there was that like mapping out those touch points. So from the audience perspective, like what do you guys think of that? Guys and gals, anybody questions? Like I said yesterday, I didn't do it yesterday, but I said yesterday, if people didn't ask questions, I was going to start just hucking these, and whoever I hit with it has to ask the question. Do we have to go there today? Here we go.
You're saving us all. Thank you.
Hey there. I work at a university, so we don't get very much repeat buyers.
I don't know. What about those legacies?
I mean, occasionally,
should I not say that?
I mean, there is the whole thing of trying to get people to do the masters and doctoral programs. However, so our struggle is to for something like this is where do you get a good mailing list? It seems like there's so many out there that are illegitimate or too old, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know anything about that?
So that is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I can share anecdata. This is my new word for anecdote, anecdata. Heard it on a public radio program, can't take credit. So my anecdata is that and if you work with a large university, you may have more access to these types of resources relative to like a smaller college, for example, right? But the ability to work with your BI teams to mine first party data is really valuable. And then there are providers of third party data that you can work with to de-anonymize uh, site traffic visitors, for example, or to work on obtaining mailing lists that are reputable for your particular target audience. I wish I could tell you more about that, but that really is, I would be speaking like way out of turn to talk about like the quality of third party data mailing lists at this point, specifically for a specific vertical.
Is there, I mean, to piggyback on that, would you give them any advice in terms of how to evaluate which third party providers might be the right one so he can make the right choice, right? Because I'm a big advocate of you take your first party first, and then the third
Yes,
party is just meant to
enrichment.
augment. Like you
Yeah.
can't do third party only, which is what a lot of people in B2C do. So is there any tips for him of like, you can't tell him the right way to do it, but are there any tips that if he starts
Well, I mean,
looking
you
at
certainly could, you certainly could use a test data set with a potential vendor where you send a mailer that is, I probably wouldn't even do like StatSig because it would be too big and too expensive, but you would pick an audience size that makes sense and test the number of undeliverable addresses that you get. And there are like Lob offers an address verification and validation solution. And there are others on the market as well that can help you determine if the number of addresses is accurate within your degree of expectation. So that would be like the approach that I would personally take.
I think it's funny, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like test and validate it,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
there's
And
no
like,
one
I mean,
size
like
fits
you
all.
negotiate with these people, right? I mean, like people negotiate with me all the time, right? Like what can you show me in terms of the quality of your data before I make a big purchase, right? So that would be my strategy to test out a variety of vendors.
What about anybody else? Oh,
Oh, wow. Here we go.
awesome.
More questions I
We're
don't
good,
know
we're
anything
good,
about.
we're good. All right, ready? Let's see if I can get a spiral.
Ask me about cars next because I know even less than that about.
No, I'll stick with direct mail.
Great.
So what do you do to get people to fill out your web forms for addresses? Because everything, whenever I hear about web forms, it's like less and less fields. Just email if you can
Yeah.
get it. So getting them to fill out, address one, address two, city, state, zip, like that seems like a big ask based on everything else that I'm hearing about, shorten your web forms.
That is a great question. So for us, for our Change the Channel campaign, right? We specifically have a product that requires an address to make it work. So the call to action is see it in action. We're going to send you a personalized postcard, right? We're going to make something just for you. So that's the way we do it to obtain that address. For uh, other use cases, what I recommend is using a Perl or a QR code that and work with your data teams to ensure that you can pre-populate as much data as possible to create that frictionless experience for a customer. So, like if you are trying to get someone to complete a cart abandoned purchase, right? You want them to go right back to where they were in the buy cycle, the buy flow, to have as little friction as possible for them to finish that purchase.
The other question I had is, and I know you guys are B2B, but do you see consistent rates for B2B companies versus B2C? Whereas, you're going to like an office address and getting lost in the mailroom or whatever versus just sending to a potential customer's home address.
I don't think I understand the question.
Are the effectiveness rates of integrated direct mail campaigns as effective for B2B companies as they are to B2C companies?
So I think what you're saying is the mail arriving to the intended recipient?
Yeah, and are you seeing like the same level of conversions when it gets sent to like an office address versus like a home address?
That's a
Because
good
you used
question.
some
I don't
examples
have
of like,
that data actually. That's a really good question. Most of our customers, though, so we are obviously working with other enterprises. They are most of their use cases are B2C. So they are finding sufficient effectiveness of delivery to achieve the outcomes that they expect to get from their campaigns. So like I had tell you a story about a customer we work with. I can't share their name, but they are in the healthcare space. They provide like a chiropractic type of service, skeleton care for as a benefit for employers. So like they have major multinational corporations as their customers, and they are providing this like service to get employees to like chiropractors, orthopedists, so on and so forth. And they were able to be so precise about the number of mailers they needed to send that they were able to determine to hit their quarterly target on a 9:30 end of quarter date. They knew they needed to send, 5x or 4x number of mailers for what they expected to convert, and they could like predict it almost to the penny. So I think like the concern that you expressed about like does the mail even get to the intended recipient is kind of addressed by the successful use of mail to achieve commercial objectives for the mailer.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Jessica, Interactive. Quick question for you on that 58% stat that you shared for the engagement rates with the mailer. I have to assume that that is going to skew a bit older. Is there any information on if for younger audiences, what that engagement rate looks like?
Yes. So Jessica, thanks. That's a great question. So I have two things I can refer you to. I don't have the stats off the top of my head because I am a member of the older audience and things don't stick the way they used to. But the direct mail sticks in my kitchen for sure. The first is the Lob State of Direct Mail report that we issued about a month and a half ago, and Marlene and I can get you the link to that. And then there's actually a terrific article from Experian, which I can find for you and send to you, about how Gen Z and millennials interact with mail. And there are stats that are consistent with that 58% number that I cited.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll mention it quickly. If you haven't seen our State of Direct Mail report, I highly recommend looking into that. This is where a lot of the content that I shared, a lot of the statistics that I shared are available. And later this month, we're coming out with a new edition of that State of Direct Mail report specifically for consumers. And you can see the where to sign up for our webinar on that topic on our website.
Well, let me throw a question for you for the audience, because
Mhm.
sometimes, like, I know just from using myself as a focus group for one, a lot of times you get these reports and there's a lot of great information, and you're like, "Wow, that's amazing," but I don't know what the hell to do with it. So, like, for the audience, anybody that you're recommending goes and gets your report on the state of direct mail, like, what are the actionable things that they can do with what's in there? Like, what's your advice to the audience based on that report from yours? Like, what's the big take home for the audience?
So I think the big take home is that direct mail works, and you need to figure out how it's going to work for you, right? And so the best way to figure out how it's going to work for you is to test and to look at your existing campaigns. Jessica and I were talking about this earlier. Like my favorite test is to say, take a campaign that you have like always on. You're always targeting people within a radius of your specific office to come in and buy some services from your practice, right? And you're always targeting them on Instagram, Facebook. I don't know, does TikTok do ads? I'm not on TikTok because I know I'll be addicted, so I don't do TikTok. But your digital, your SEO, SEM, all your digital, marketing that you're doing, and then use that as a control and run a test with direct mail pieces and see what the difference is. And that will help you get a very precise measurement of whether or not what lift direct mail provided to your existing campaign. And then you can calculate whether it's worth the ROI. And I'm pretty sure that it would be.
What about the audience? Any more questions?
I actually have one more.
Oh,
Yeah.
go.
Awesome. How cost effective is direct mail comparatively to, say, like a social media advertising campaign or, traditional Google ads?
Great question. I think this again also depends upon what your cost structure is. Like I'm not that familiar with the digital space and like what the different drivers of cost are for different keywords, different properties, so on and so forth. Direct mail is not the least expensive channel. However, if you're really thinking about conversion, like what is your cost and then your conversion, and presumably in some cases, you're going to look at customer lifetime value because they'll come back for repeat transactions or services. You would need to use those KPIs that you would use to determine the ROI on your social, your SEO, SEM, and all of your other digital spend, right? And use the same type of calculus to determine how much additional ROI the direct mail achieved for you.
And I know it's your show, not to like interject, but I work at an agency and we buy shit, right? So I would say.
I thought you said not to sell shit.
I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling what we do. But the
I'm
point I
always
was going to
teasing.
make is I think direct mail in terms of price, like social, like LinkedIn, Facebook prices are going up. So that's probably your higher cost per thousand point of entry. And I would say more often than not, in B2C, paid search is becoming a very expensive channel, but in B2B, paid search is still very affordable. So I would say the direct mail is somewhere in the middle.
I think that's probably fair.
Right? Like,
Yep.
And I think she's right. I think it comes down to, what's your conversion rate? What's the waste? And your conversion rate's almost irrelevant. It really is a factor of what you paid for it and what it leaves worth to you. So sometimes you can do a buy and have a really bad conversion rate and the cost per in the back end are perfectly fine. Other cases, if the point of entry is really high, you need a higher conversion rate to make sure the cost per in the back end work out. And like I would say direct mail kind of falls somewhere in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. And I think I loved your comment because I do think it comes down to just try it. And does it work for you? Right?
Right. And does it and where does it work? When in the customer journey does it work? And then what message do you need to send at that point in the journey, right? So it's subject to the same amount of variables as anything else you're working with to engage a customer. And the thing that's different about direct mail now relative to the past is that you can be much more responsive in the direct mail pieces that you send to how you know the customer is going to behave based on the data that you've got. Whereas in the past, it was much more about one size fits all, long lead times, costly in those ways, like lack of reactive and responsiveness, as opposed to being as practically as responsive as a digital channel.
Anybody else? Questions? Anyone? Come on.
I could go all day.
We can't let her off this easy. Come on, people. I know it's day 2, but nobody has questions? All right, let me throw you one for the audience.
Sure.
In the world of all traditional channels starting to digitize, how does somebody think about direct mail being integrated in with all their digital capabilities? Because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity, particularly now with people working from home, right? Working remote. If you can start to geofence, people that work at this company that I want to target tend to live in these neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. How do I go about taking what I do with digital and then almost using the direct mail the old-fashioned way as a support mechanism to digital to kind of extend that reach and engagement? Do you have any thoughts on how direct mail fits in this kind of integrated omni-channel, pseudo all digital, not all digital world? Right.
So I have 2 thoughts on that I think are worth mentioning. The rest are really speculative. But the first is that you can use direct mail to drive people back to your digital properties, right? So that's where QR codes, pearls, promo codes, and stuff come in really handy. And the more precise you can get with your data, the better you can create the more friction you can reduce or make it more frictionless for your customers when they go back to that digital channel, right? Or you can learn more about them. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that with triggering and knowing that, on average, what the average mail speed times are, you can, time an email, an SMS, and a direct mail piece to land in the customer's devices and mailbox. In this case, their mailbox is a device, right? At specific points in time that you want it to. So, if a customer just, switched a service provider, I'll give you an example. This is a hypothetical example, but the example is I stopped using my phone carrier and I went to another phone carrier, right? The day I terminate my service, I still have my same phone number, still have my same mailing address. You can send a SMS text to the customer and say, hey, check your mailbox for a special offer. We're really going to miss you. We want you to come back. And then in the mailbox, 3 to 5 days later, first class postcard, you're going to get an offer that says, thank you for being a loyal customer for the last 20 years with us, Nicole. We don't want to lose your business. Here's, a new iPhone 13 on us, and we'll keep your prices the same, your subscription costs the same, right? So to me, that's like an example of where you can orchestrate like a very compelling, highly personalized and action oriented campaign to a specific customer.
I think it's great. I love the digital, like online, offline kind of tie-in. I think it's kind of the hybrid world that we're all going to. Anybody else have any more questions for Nicole before I cut her loose off the stage?
I do.
You ready? I told you I'm going to start throwing this at everybody.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
So for your tool, have you seen it more? Well, I mean, just speaking at a startup stage, right? Which I would assume most people here are. But given if you're like in a startup stage, would you use this more as a retention tool as far as like maintaining your customers and like keeping up with them? Or would you see this as like hey, it looks like your churn rate's pretty high. Here's another way to add a touch point that's real time and tangible?
So that's a great question. I would say all of the above, and looking at using direct mail as a way to measure the impact on the outcome that you want to achieve, right? And I think if many of you are in a startup environment where, say, resources may be constrained on the dev side, I just want to be clear that this type of automation is available. Like you can interact directly with our platform, so that you don't need to have like a massive tech stack to integrate. That's not a barrier to entry to use direct mail when you're using Lob.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Any bites? No? All right. Well, I guess, Nicole, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. It was great to see you. Thanks for having me.